Hello and welcome to SquishiVision, where I have just finished watching the season and indeed, I believe, show finale of Star Trek Prodigy, Ouroboros, which means it shares a lot in common with Loki, but that's, I think, purely coincidental. Or at least, well, I mean, obviously, I know Ouroboros as a term to do with like time for like a while, so I do know that. I just think it's kind of it is cute. Anyway, so this was an interesting episode. It was a good finale. We definitely hit the kind of the wow factor relative to the kind of the shows. Lily has opinions and wants pets. You want pets, do you? You chose the wrong time for pets. And your collar is being chroma keyed out. What was I saying? It definitely had that one factor. I was worried we'd got the situation where the first half of the two-parter, the first episode, would basically resolve all the plot, and the second half would just be like an epilogue, an extended epilogue, and it does bother me when that kind of happens. I think it was my issue with Discovery, I want to say. Possibly. But then again, the issue of Discovery is that there was like a week, or whatever show it was, there was like a week gap between the one episode ending and the other episode, and that kind of obviously impacted in the whole kind of nature of it. Whereas here I was able to watch them back to back, and I was wondering if that would make a difference, but actually they kind of balanced it differently anyway. The epilogue was a fairly short part, but it was a very short but intense part of the show ending, which is kind of what you want to happen. I think it got the kind of the balance absolutely right, but I'm getting ahead of myself. That's the ending. Let's talk about the rest of the episode first. So the first half dealt with basically dealing with Essentia on Solum. There was a appropriate amount of threat for the intended audience of this show. It had a bunch of characters like falling off things, being electrocuted, getting hurt. Also, despite the whole fact of their whole kind of, we need to all stay together, literally, they do split up quite a lot, because we split up half the crew into the Protostar, and the other half go to Solum. But that doesn't get commented on, even though it was a big kind of factor the previous two episodes about how that was actually literally they have to stick together. But apparently it doesn't count anymore. I guess it makes sense with us not knowing kind of what the future beholds. So the crew and the Protostar basically have to work out how to mathematically generate the wormhole to get Protostar back, trying to work out all the factors, battling with the idea, but don't know exactly when the Protostar arrives back. There's a weird thing that happens twice, where they recap essentially the premise of season 1 of Star Trek Prodigy, and then we get a second recap, but with some flashbacks, but essentially the exact same thing for some reason. And then just to jump ahead again, we multiple times, as they travel through the wormhole to the past, we get the same kind of flashbacks, clips from season 1, as if like, it's a bit odd, but also if I put myself in the mindset of the creators of the show, knowing that this show was cut off early and they kind of want to celebrate the journey they've been on, I can see. I mean, it's something that I would do, because I'm that kind of nostalgic, where I would basically be like, well, here's where we were before. So it's interesting because they also show clips from this season as well, right up to this point, and they kind of reflect back. And it's a bit self-congratulatory, but I think, to be honest, they deserve it. It's a decent show, enough show. So that was that bit. And then so it wasn't that bit. So so they're on the process trying to work out how to like travel back in time, and then they kind of go, oh well, actually all roads lead to Rome, kind of thing. It doesn't matter when Protostar arrives, as long as it's there in time. We don't actually, because we don't know when that happened, we don't need to kind of worry too much about when that happened. And then they kind of say a bunch of technobabble that I think would have become, I mean, I know technobabble is a big part of Star Trek, but somehow I felt that would have been a bit less clunky if it was just them tapping on this thing without having to, tapping on a keyboard without having to like say random stuff, because it very much them highlighting that part of the problem where they're like, computer, just solve the issue for us, reinforces essentially what's happening in that moment. Um, Whereas I think if it actually typed on a keyboard, it would have like skimmed over that a bit more. But whatever. Basically, they work out part of it, which isn't really the massive part of it, and then the computer to do the rest. The computer just does the rest and solves the problem for them, and so they're able to get that to the crew on Soul, who have to climb basically up the top of the tower to put it in, whilst battling both the kind of main antagonists of the show at this point, which is Essentia and is V Deadlock. I think this is V Deadlock from the first season. It's never really actually kind of highlighted. Deadlock is very, despite the fact that the voice actor for the role is still credited as main cast. Deadlock is very much about a background character of this season, less so than they were in the first season, where they were almost they were very much a star screen, whereas here they're very much kind of a background character. It's a point where I even like forget that they were like this big thing in the first season. And I forgot actually until now, but the Deadlock that essentially has is meant to be the Deadlock in the first season, who travels back in time as well. So, but yeah, they have to battle him, and he finally gets destroyed. I did think there was like a moment where we were gonna like linger on the potential. I didn't think they were actually gonna kill off Murph, but I thought there was a moment where we were gonna linger on that when Murph basically pulls Deadlock into this white void in the reactor, and I thought they were gonna hold on to that, but immediately they kind of like show that's not the case, and I guess that's fine. Preferable actually in some cases. So they all get where they need to go. They all open up this wormhole to send the protostar back in time to where it needs to be. And then Lumos come through, and that's the kind of threat for the second half, dealing with that. And I mean, it's kind of actually, in the large scheme of things, easily solved. It established the entirety of the season that the Loom are very good at getting through shields and things, and can like kill a whole bunch of people very quickly. That doesn't seem to be a threat anymore. They're able to put up temporal shields that they weren't able to put before for some reason, and that basically reduces the threat to zero. And they have a whole thing about how it's a complicated flight path into the wormhole, so we can't like just send it in on its own. We've got to send it in with Voyager, so Voyager can then beam out the crew when at the right time. But the flight path seems fairly straightforward, actually, with the shields repelling everyone. And also, it seems like not a so uncomplicated flight path that pre-cadets can do it. Rather than say, I mean, I guess Chakotay's on there as well, and he's a fairly decent pilot. I don't think he's probably the best pilot that we have, but I guess Tom Paris isn't in this show. But they do it. We get all these like nostalgic flashbacks. There's less kind of threat in the second half than there is in the first half, but it does a decent enough job in resolving the whole thing. And then they all go back to basically Earth, and we get this kind of epilogue where Janeway tries to retire, but then the events of season 1 Star Trek Picard kind of happen, which is a nice kind of continuity, like interlock. Like, you don't tend to get that in finales where major events in other shows have already happened play not a role but a background kind of triggering events that influences certain things. And it's a bit interesting because it's unclear if they were planning a season 3 or not. It works kind of both ways. It works weaker as a finale, but it does kind of work as a finale in the sense of an adventure goes on, and it is a place for them to pick up from, but they don't necessarily have to pick up from it. So it's not a major issue, but it is quite like a tense. It is quite like a tense ending of the show, if it is the ending of the show, because basically they really do like lean into the whole, oh, Mars has been attacked. It's very dramatic. Everyone's kind of on tenterhooks. Everyone's worried. Starfleet is pulling back from its whole exploration, its whole borders thing. Hi. The everyone's worried. It is very much I mean, it is essentially the equivalent of a terrorist attack. So everyone is kind of acting in probably the same kind of way that they would, especially considering how rare those are in the utopian Earth state. We get these nice depictions of the uniforms that we see in Star Trek Picard in animated form. I love those. We gloss over the fact that a lot of things here I guess, in terms of, so I'm getting ahead of myself, but essentially what Janeway does is because she's so keen to kind of keep the exploration part of Starfleet alive. I did have another objection actually about the first half. They send down the Protostar crew, like as in the kids. For some, and it's not clear. I mean, I know this is a long-lasting Star Trek trope, um, about sending down main characters over the right qualified characters, but I don't know why we didn't send down any like specialist security detachments, which I assume Voyager must have on them. Like no security officers, no more experienced officers. You know, this wasn't a stealth mission. They were basically fighting to get to a place to put in a code. They could have sent down like any number of officers. I don't know why it had to be a small team. I mean, even in like previous episodes of Star Trek, we do kind of get around it by having like other teams that are off screen or doing other things or holding off people. So you explains it here. They just send the kids for no reason. Like it's not as if, and they don't attempt to even justify it like they have in the kind of previous episodes. That did kind of bug me, but I guess it's a long-standing Star Trek trope, so I can't be too kind of complaining about it. But yeah, so Jane wants to keep the exploration of the Federation alive, so she decides to recommission the USS Prodigy, which is a Protostar class ship, named Prodigy. So finally, Prodigy is the name of a ship right at the end, which I do actually like. And basically gives it to these cadets, and that's also a bit confusing because it is a full ship that's presumably meant to be run by full crew, and Star Trek's kind of like confusing aspect of automation is present here because they do establish that ships can be run by automation if needed. It has been pretty consistent in establishing that's an emergency measure that does make it less efficient than if they just had a full crew. But this seems to imply that, you know, even from like the get-go, only 5 people on a bridge are needed to run this entire ship. And it is like, why not give them a smaller ship? Or why not give them more crew? Why not give them more cadets? Did those other 2 cadets the Nova Squadron cadets, did they not earn a field commission? It's a bit crap on them. Like, oh, you didn't volunteer. Destiny didn't tell you to go here, so you don't get this field commission. That was kind of like, they could have joined that crew. Like, do they not have another crew? Do they not have other like cadets that they can take under their command? It's a bit kind of weird a choice to make. It's obviously why from a Doylistic point of view why it's happened, but from a Watsonian point of view it's kind of like irresponsible, and a weird allocation of resources, like especially considering how much of like an advanced and important ship the Protostar is. But they all get field commissions to ensign, so they're all officers now. They've skipped the academy, but I guess so that's not nothing new. Wesley did it. They get these really cool new unique uniforms for their training roles. And the adventure goes on, and Gwyn now takes over the command because I think Del. It's not. I feel like it's a step we've missed a reflection for Del. I get it makes sense for Del to suddenly step back because of their insecurities, but it's not really made fully explicit. But they do it anyway, so it's fine. You are stepping on my keyboard, Lily, and you're probably gonna do something which I'd rather you didn't. Okay, that's fine. So that's essentially the play of things. I definitely have stronger feelings over season 1 of Star Trek Prodigy. I think just because the whole Star Trek Prodigy season 1 was very Star Trek to its core by basically taking these brand new characters who have no connection to the Federation and making them learn about the benefits of the Federation. I think sold to me a lot of the benefit of sold to me a lot of the message of Star Trek from a fresh perspective that you can't really do with other Star Trek shows, because everyone in that show is kind of like in tune with what the Federation actually is. So they can't really. There's limited opportunities where they can learn from scratch. Whereas in this one, Lily, they can all learn from scratch and it kind of give you that different perspective. Whereas this season seems a little less kind of like clear on that message, but it was still a strong season. It was still strong points. I love the re-inclusion of Wesley Crusher, who got a very nice, adorable moment in this episode where he finally like they undo a misjustice of Wesley's inclusion in Picard and Beverly's inclusion in the second season, the third season of Picard, where these characters don't like meet, and that happens here, and that's kind of cute. And Wesley meets Jack Crusher. It's nice of a tie-in to season 3 of Star Trek Picard. It kind of ties in season 1, ties into season 3. There, obviously, this is years before. We get a nice kind of cute bit with other characters. I do get teary at the end, and I was left with a sense of like optimism, which is what you want. So those are my thoughts with Star Trek Prodigy. I'm glad that we were able to see season 2 because I really did love season 1, and I'm glad we were able to kind of like follow that story ahead. Unclear if there's gonna be a season 3. Actually, I don't know if there's been any kind of like news reports. I should probably like try and bring one up, see if there's anything that's kind of been brought up about the Prodigy season 3. Are we gonna get a Prodigy season 3? Uh, dee, dee, dee. So they're hoping for season 3, but they don't really know. So it's not been commissioned. It's not been filmed. I don't know if it's been written. So we don't know if we're going to get season 3. I do hope so. I think there is we've now come to a new kind of place and a new ways to tell stories. So it would be nice to kind of see that, I think. Anyway, my coffee has now hit me, which means I need to pop off. Thanks for tuning in. That's been Star Trek Prodigy. Let us know what you think in the comments, and I will need to get ready for the LARP. So I'll see you another time. Bye.